is Daryl. This is my co-host Spencer, and welcome to the Gameday Breakfast Podcast. Spencer, how you doing?
I'm great, man. It was a fantastic weekend for multiple reasons, but for the main reason being that LSU beat Alabama for the first time in eight years. Dude, I'm so freaking excited.
That's right, folks. Quarterback Kevin McAllister and the Mardi Gras colored Pussycats went into Tuscaloosa and took down St. Nick.
If that's what you want to call it, we beat Alabama. That's all I'm really worried about.
Have you ever noticed that Joe Burrow looks exactly like Kevin McAllister in Home Alone?
He looks a lot like Colin McCalkin. He really does.
There's lots of similarities. Like even when he runs, he has the same stressed look on his face as Macaulay Culkin does.
Yeah, he's a stud though, man. He's a beast.
You could take a picture of him running from like an Alabama dude, and then put the two thieves from Home Alone on those faces, and it would look just like Macaulay Culkin running from the Sticky Bandits.
Yeah, or the Wet Bandits, the Slippery Bandits, is that what they're called? Something like
Depends
that.
Which one you're watching. It was the Wet Bandits in the first one, and then the Sticky Bandits in the second one, because Marv had tape on his hands, and then he was like reaching into like the Red Cross people and grabbing some change. Anyways, we're not here to talk about Home Alone lore.
I've never actually seen those movies, so.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains why you weren't hysterically laughing like I'm sure everyone at home was. So, heck of a game, though. We got to catch 5 minutes of it.
Yeah. We were incredibly busy getting ready for our buddy Jack's wedding that we both had the honor to be groomsmen in. So we were sitting inside of a very hot church building, dressed to the nines in tuxedos.
Dressing.
And then we got to dance and drink very good wine and chill for a little while. Evening. Got to see a bunch of people I hadn't seen in a long time.
Fantastic, and we talked a lot of football actually, because a lot of our people back home are also big football fans. So yeah,
we did talk a lot of football. So
yes, absolutely. So well, my man, it felt good, I'm sure, to watch your team win, but I'm sure to a certain extent you were like, well, my pick was wrong, because your pick was wrong. You picked Bama to win that one.
I did, in fact, pick Alabama because they were the safe pick, obviously. They'd beaten LSU 8 times in a row, starting in the 2012 National Championship all the way up to this year. So it stands to reason that I would pick you see that and you're like, yes, you're going to pick them, because even though this was the first year in a long time that going into the game, I had the most confidence that I ever had about our chances. And obviously LSU won 46-41. I still picked Alabama to win because I've been let down before. So they just happened to get it together this time, and I'm very excited. But great game. And shout out to Tua Tagovailoa for playing on a bad ankle, and at the end of the game, he could barely walk, and he almost brought them back to win it. So shout out to him, man. He's a hell of an athlete.
For sure. And, it becomes less personal as we watch these games and get a little bit older. It just becomes sort of, and the more we actually do this podcast, the more I just have respect for the athletes, and less do I feel it's ever personal. But you mentioned something interesting a second ago. You said that history proves that Alabama plays well in this game, and then of course the last 8 they've won, except for this most previous one. But it's funny you say that you kind of go by history, and that's exactly what Stephen A. Smith was saying. But Marcus Spears, who I'm sure you know is an LSU grad,
yes. I watched these videos. I watched Marcus Spears' video. They were so good, dude.
Big thing he mentioned was that the past is the past, and that every year something new can happen, even if trends say one thing, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, it's the future now.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a thing where the only season that matters is this one. The only game that matters is the one you just played. Which there's a lot of truth to that. You still have to look at history, and you can't take things away from. You can't take accomplishments away from teams. But, I mean, this is what I thought was interesting about this game was that to me the difference maker, because both defenses struggled at times. There was a lot of blown coverages on both sides of the ball. And I know this because if you're clever and you picked up that you didn't watch the game earlier, it's because I went and watched the highlights. But what I thought was interesting about this game was that Tua Tagovailoa and Joe Burrow both played very well.
Tua had more yards and he had more touchdowns, but he also gave up the ball. He threw an interception, and he also had the Manti Te'o girlfriend tackle in the first quarter.
We watched that live. That was beautiful.
Watched that. Yeah, we got to see that part. Joe Burrow threw for under 400 yards, and he only had 3 touchdowns comparatively. But again, his QBR, and this is what I went back to last week, that Joe Burrow is a big game quarterback, and he excels in the big game atmosphere. Against Alabama, in Alabama, he had a 92 QBR, 91.9. He just steps up in big games, man.
And, he was 31 of 39, I believe, passing.
Absolutely. Again, spread the ball out very well. So to me, the difference was Joe Burrow. I thought both offenses were good, but
let me tell you that you know who the difference was? Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the LSU running back.
Yes.
He scored 2 touchdowns on the ground, and I believe another one in the air, and was running all over the field. That dude's a beast, man.
No doubt about it, and that was what helped out the best, is they were able to move the ball on the ground, because whenever Alabama can make you one-dimensional, either way, if you can only run the ball but you can't throw, or if you can only throw but can't run the ball, that's where they beat you. But they're able to move it both ways, and pretty much do exactly what they wanted, and that's how they put up 46 points. But this was a heck of a game, a historical game that we obviously missed watching live. But this was special.
Yeah, it was. I'm excited. We finally got it. We finally did it. We got over the hump. And all biases aside, in my personal opinion, I'm gonna say what I think it was Paul Feinbaum. I watched him earlier. He said Joe Burrow's got 2 hands around the Heisman Trophy, and I don't really see anybody else knocking it out of his hands, unless something crazy happens. I mean, this is college football. Crazy things do happen. But I do think the Heisman Trophy is now Joe Burrow's to lose.
He's putting up the numbers, no doubt, and
best player on the best team, right?
Absolutely, and I agree with you. I think he probably will win it, unless out of nowhere Jalen Hurts decides to become amazing again.
I think his closest competition is going to be Justin Fields at Ohio State. Actually,
you're probably right about that.
I think if Joe Burrow doesn't win it, I definitely think Justin Fields will. But those will be the top 2 for sure. Those are going to be the winner and the first runner-up.
Absolutely. And, LSU obviously was able to pick it up this game. You picked against them, but to give you some reconciliation for that, you did pick the final score for Bama to win it. You said 45-38, which was much closer to the actual score, which is 46-41. I took LSU winning, so I get the win there. But I did pick 27-23. I thought it was going to be a lower, scrappy affair, like whenever LSU played Auburn. Obviously, I was wrong about that, but they did get the win. So
yeah, I'm
interesting.
going to venture a guess to say that Auburn's defense might be better than Alabama's this year.
Yeah, I would be better to say that. I would be absolutely secure in saying that it's better than even the LSU defense. I think they probably have one of the top. I think they're probably up there with Ohio State as far as defenses goes.
Ohio State's been playing lights out, even without Chase Young. They just put 73 on Maryland. So
exactly. So Ohio State is.
But Maryland, outside the first 2 weeks of the season, is usually garbage. So.
Right, of course.
Don't schedule Maryland week 1 because you'll lose every time.
Right. Just to quickly go back through some of the games that we we made picks on. Florida picked up the win versus Vandy. No surprises there. We both got that correct. Texas and K-State. Scrappy game. There wasn't a whole lot of scoring really until the last quarter. Texas came out on top. I had that picked. You went with K-State. I really wanted to go with K-State too, but I thought, no, there's something's going to be fishy here.
Dicker the kicker.
The kicker once again becoming saving the Longhorns from an embarrassing defeat. This would not have been an embarrassing defeat though. This is a team that's taken down Oklahoma. But yeah, Cameron Dicker is definitely clutch. He'll definitely be a big time NFL kicker.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Through means that you're not allowed to discuss. You've met him, correct?
Yeah, real nice kid. real guy, but yeah, very, very cool guy. Very, very nice guy. And that's kind of really all I can say.
Yeah.
But he's cool. As soon as I saw him, I was like, oh, I get it. He has sort of like the typical kicker personality, just very, very nice, and that's kind of it. That's cool. But yeah, cool guy. Wisconsin went down. We both picked Iowa. Excuse me, Wisconsin won. We both picked Iowa to win that game.
Yeah. They were in Camp Randall, and had they been in Kinnick Stadium, Iowa would have won. But because they were in Camp Randall, Wisconsin won.
Right. It was a close one. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it came down to a last-second field goal. So
it
yeah,
was 24-22 final score.
Right. So that was a one that we could have gone either way, but we both took the L on that. Baylor coming up with a close win against TCU.
We got to watch the end of this one. That catch was not the end. We got to watch the end of regulation because this went to 3 overtimes. But that catch was ridiculous.
What a catch that was, man. It was unreal. Just the way that, and that's one of my favorite things. That to me is what separates a good quarterback from a great quarterback. In the same way, a good pitcher from a great pitcher is being able to paint the corners, right? Like a good pitcher can paint the corners of the strike zone, and for a quarterback, that strike zone is like an arm's length out of bounds, you know,
for sure,
so that you can reach out, tap your toes in where only your guy can get it.
Or in this case, a hand, because that's what he did.
Or hand, right. And so, beautiful pass, beautiful catch. They reviewed it. I really thought that was it, but then they kept going, and Baylor pulled it out. So, thanks to that, we'll have a game day in Waco next week.
Mm-hmm. I mean, after what happened this Saturday, there really was no competition for who was going to get game day because Virginia Tech put a beat down on Wake Forest. But yeah, game day is going to be in Waco for Baylor and Oklahoma.
Absolutely. So that'll be a fun one. Georgia taking down. Georgia took down Mizzou this past weekend. We both picked that game. Nothing really
surprise,
fancy there. West Kentucky took down Arkansas, except it was very ugly. So you have that one. I picked Arkansas. Yeah. Then the fun one, Penn State going into Minnesota, and Minnesota pulled out the win.
Roll the boat.
Upset.
Roll the boat,
man. I'm telling you.
Skyuma. Gophers have made me a fan, man.
I'm telling you. And I tell you what, their uniforms, because I'll be honest with you, I haven't – that might have been the first Minnesota game I actually sat down and watched a little bit of. Because in the past, I've never really had a reason to watch Minnesota. And I gotta say, I mean, uniforms with the gold on top. Like you thought that if you've never watched the Minnesota game, if you've never seen Minnesota's uniforms, you need to watch one of these games because their gold tops are much better than the Notre Dame gold helmets to me, at least. Just
gold chrome, they look real good.
It just matches the red better.
Yeah, their colors are traditionally is maroon, yellow, and white is traditionally their colors. But they've got like a dark, like anthracite charcoal gray uniform they wear, and then they'll put like the dark charcoal gray emblems on their helmets. And the middle stripe down their helmet looks like wood grain, like a boat oar, like their thing is row the boat. So,
they rode the boat all right. I mean, they straight up slapped them with the oar. But yeah,
I picked Penn State to win this game because
4.
Yeah, I mean, they were number 4, and I just pictured Penn State being the better team. But Minnesota was balling in this game, and even though the final score was 31-26, Minnesota dominated this game the entire time. Their defense played lights out. They caught 3 interceptions, including one in the end zone to seal it right there at the end. So this was a fun game.
That was a big one. Tanner Morgan, the quarterback from Minnesota, was fantastic. 18 of 24, averaging 17 yards through the air, almost 350 yards. I mean, just did everything they needed to do. They sort of, I don't want to say they pitched the perfect game, but they definitely went out and did exactly what they had to do to upset number 4 Penn State, and they did exactly that. I mean, there was nothing really about it. It was just a secure, clean football game on their side of the ball.
Yeah, they dominated. They played very well. I think Tanner Morgan went 18 for 20 passing, and their running backs ran all over the field, and just a very clean game from Minnesota, and not the cleanest game Penn State's ever played.
Right. Yeah, no, they had two different running backs with over 20-yard runs. So they were just able to win up front too, is what it looked like. So I mean, this is a team that really deserves to be looked at. And that might be a good segue into the next thing we're going to talk about, which is our personal top sixes. But just to recap last week for the picks, Spencer, you went 4-4 on our 8 picks, and I went 6-2. But I think you're going to be happy with that, considering your Tigers won.
Yeah, I could have been totally wrong, but
could have been 1-8 and been like, 1-7. You'd have been like, all right, well, that's okay. So. Yeah. Let's get into our the meat and potatoes of this podcast this week, which is
our top 6.
Our top 6. I had to delay the podcast this week because I had some stuff come up yesterday.
Yeah, we were recording this on Tuesday, and I was a little busy later in the day. But luckily for us, the playoff rankings have just come out, so we
stars aligned, so we got to see.
Yeah, so we know what the playoff committee has ranked these teams, but we are going to give you our top 6s, and then we're going to compare them to what the playoff committee did.
Briefly, I think. What do you think would be the best way to do this? You think we say we reveal each number 1, yours, mine, and theirs, and then reveal each do yours, mine, and theirs, and then kind of go like that, or should we just do all 6 for each of us?
We can go individually like that. Mine's probably going to be a little controversial. But
gotcha. Well, that's all right. I mean, that's the point. Just to clear the air real quick, the official top 6 is, and this was just released by ESPN. The official top 6 is number 1 LSU, no surprise there. Number 2, Ohio State, as we expected. Number 3, Clemson. Number 4, Georgia. They had Georgia getting in above Alabama. And then, of course, number 5, Alabama. Number 6, Oregon. And then 7 and 8 are Utah and Minnesota just looking in and getting to the playoff with a little bit of time left. Mm-hmm. So that is the official top 6. Spencer, thoughts, your top 6, go.
I'm going to give you my top 8, actually.
Yeah, that's fine. I had 8. I had 8 written too.
Okay. All right. So number 1, LSU, obviously. Yes, I'm an LSU fan, but you look at the body of work that LSU has done this season, and they are undoubtedly the best team in the country right now. Number 2, I have Ohio State, which obviously, I think you could make the argument for Ohio State being number 1, but they were number 1 last week. And I just think LSU and Ohio State are the top 2 teams in the country right now. LSU obviously just took down Alabama, and Ohio State's been knocking the chocolate out of people. And then number 3, I have Clemson. They're still undefeated. They're still the reigning champs. But they haven't played anybody, and they almost lost to a 4-win North Carolina team, right?
They haven't garnered the right type of attention. Yeah. The one game that is really a talking point for them is a near loss. Nothing else has been. If Alabama had beaten this LSU team, they would have been undefeated, of course. Mm-hmm. But convert as opposed to Clemson, it would have been deal that they beat this LSU team. So Clemson's garnering the wrong kind of attention. And let's be clear here: right now, your top 3 is matching the official, and my top 3 also matches yours and the official. I have LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson because really and truthfully, we're arguing the next. We're arguing for number 4. I think the top 3 are fairly obvious. I think everyone's pretty much in agreement. It's just that number 4 spot. So
who do you got at number 4? Who's your number 4?
You want me to go first on the number 4?
Yeah, well, because we know the committee has. No, I'll go. Because we know the committee has Georgia at number 4. I'm going to tell you who I have at number 4. I have Minnesota at number 4. They just beat the, and I'll tell you why. They just beat the number 4 team in the country. They are undefeated, and to me, if you're undefeated, you should be in over a 1-loss or a 2-loss team. I'm glad they jumped all those 2-loss teams that were ahead of them. But to me, Minnesota should be in the top 4 right now. The committee talks about how it's kind of a week-to-week basis. I think Minnesota should be in the top 4.
Interesting. All right. My take on that, before I tell you mine, because I do have Minnesota in my top 8, but they're not my number 4. As much as I really want to put them there, I think it's hard to look at one game. I think with college football, and when you're trying to decide the rankings, you need to look obviously at the full schedule, the context of the full schedule, and you need to because that's your sample size. And on top of that, you want to. I forgot what the last thing I was going to say. But the reason I don't have them in my number 4 spot is because when you look at their schedule, they're obviously undefeated, and that should count for something. But the only win that they have that I would call is a quality win, and they're only a ranked win, either against an opponent that was ranked or is currently ranked, is against Penn State. Now that's a really great win. It was at home. But that being said, it's too small of a sample size. I think if they show up next week at Iowa and do some damage, if they pull that game out, then yes, I think you could make a strong argument for them to pop in the top 4. But I think that's really all they need is just one more. I remember the other thing I was going to say. Number 1, the quality, the rankings of the opponents you win, but also how many out-of-conference wins you have.
And they won all of theirs. They were all very close, but they won all of them.
Right. But again, against non-ranked opponents, you look at LSU winning against a ranked Texas team.
Yeah.
Anyways, just as an example. But I think that this is a Minnesota team that is one win away from being in the top 4. I think if they win against or at Iowa, they should be top 4, especially since they would be undefeated. Since they have 4 teams in the top 4 that are undefeated, all with quality ranked wins. Mm-hmm. But to me, they just need one more game because their sample size is a little bit small.
Well, let me ask you this question. If they beat Iowa and Baylor beats Oklahoma, who do you put in the top 4?
Now that would be pretty twisted. If they beat
Iowa on the road and Baylor beats Oklahoma at home, who do you put in the top 4?
I have to really look at that because number 1, I'd be interested to see. When you look at Iowa, they do have 3 losses, right? They're number 20. I think I'd have to lean a little bit toward just because they have multiple ranked wins. I would lean towards Baylor, but I think that's a really, really tough spot. That would be, what the playoff committee would have a real problem fitting another SEC team in there if both teams won this weekend. So that might be the most interesting thing to keep watch for this weekend, folks.
And I've made my opinion known that I don't think there should ever be 2 teams from the same conference in the playoff. Obviously, it's going to happen. It's only happened once, I think, but I don't ever think there should be 2 teams from the same conference in the playoff.
If it is 2 teams that should be in the top 4, just because they have the resume of a top 4 team. I think they belong, even if they're on the same conference. I just don't think that's very common, right? I don't think that's going to happen very often, but I think it can happen.
It obviously happened 2 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago, when they put Alabama in over Ohio State, but that was because Ohio State had just got clapped by Iowa by 40-something points. So,
right.
But anyway,
that's understandable.
I'm gonna finish out my top 8. I have Minnesota at 4.
Please do.
I have Alabama at 5. I have Baylor at 6, Oregon at 7, and Georgia at 8.
All right. So you have Oregon. Say your last 4 again. I'm sorry, I was reading something.
5 Alabama, 6 Baylor, 7 Oregon, 8 Georgia. And the reason why is because Alabama's only loss currently is to the current number 1 team. Mm-hmm. Baylor is undefeated, yes, but you look at their resume and they also kind of haven't really played anyone. And then you look at Oregon, their only loss is to a current top 10 team in Auburn, or Auburn is 11, I believe, to a top 15 team in Auburn. And then Georgia, yes, they have 1 loss, but their 1 loss is to a South Carolina team with a losing record. So that's why I have them so low. Obviously,
did you have Georgia 8?
I have Georgia at 8. Yes.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. We both have. We can all agree on Alabama being at 5. I actually have them at 5. My number 4 spot is going to Oregon. I like Oregon. I think that their one loss is an early season loss against a game that 8 times out of 10 they win. But it was again a very key last minute play. I think Oregon very well could have won that game, and in my opinion, probably should have. I think if you take that out of the equation, then they're absolutely in the top 4. I don't think it's even a question. And I really, really think that Auburn has one of the top 3 defenses in the nation. Again, same tier as
Auburn's
as
in
Ohio
a cool
State.
spot right now.
Right, they're the only team this year that has held, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they're the only team this year that has held LSU to like under 30 points.
Yeah. Well, look at their losses. They lost to LSU, and I'm not sure who their other loss was to. Florida. Yeah, but
very opportunistic.
They are in a cool spot because they still have to play Georgia. They play Georgia this week, so if they can knock Georgia off. Like, they're probably not going to make it to the SEC championship unless something completely wild happens. But they still have to play Georgia and Alabama, and I think they have realistic shots in both of those games. So
absolutely, and to be clear, the only reason I think that the games they have lost the only reason they have lost the games that they have lost is because their offense is not able to keep with their defense.
Yeah,
because their defense is keeping them in everything.
Yeah.
I think when you look at the game that they're going to have with Georgia, you're going to see something very similar to the Notre Dame game, where it's going to be very low scoring. Again, it's going to be another big test for Jake Fromm. I think actually that Auburn's going to win that game. If I'm being honest with you, and that will reflect in my picks later. Yeah. But I think Auburn will win that game, so I don't think Georgia's going to be sticking around in the top 8 for very long. But that being said, with that being the only loss Oregon has, and them also coming up with some very clutch wins. I think this Oregon team deserves to be in the top 4. Yeah. My number 5 is Alabama. I think we're pretty understanding on that, just because their one loss is very quality. And again, they had an injured Tua. Number 6, I have Georgia, but I think they're going to be sliding soon. Minnesota, I'm ready for them to break in the top 6, but again, I just need them to prove themselves against Iowa. I think if they do that, it's going to be awesome. I think that it would just be fun to see Minnesota in the playoff picture.
Oh, yeah. Just to have very much a different slate of teams make the playoff.
Yeah,
it's going to look
absolutely.
So nice.
Absolutely. And then right behind them, I have Penn State, just because I think that this is still a very legitimately good team. But, one loss. Again, this is a game that Penn State probably should have won, but Minnesota did enough to win it.
I don't know about should have won. Like, Penn State made a bunch of mistakes and Minnesota just dominated.
What I mean by that is I think if both teams come out and play equally as clean and nothing really, I think if both teams come out and play to the top of their game, then Penn State will win every time. Mm-hmm. But Penn State made a lot of key mistakes, and Minnesota was very level-headed, and that's what did it. So yeah, I mean, interesting to see what's going to happen. But yeah, I think it all comes down to sort of that number 4 spot. Georgia is what the playoff committee think. I got Oregon, and you have Minnesota. So
I'm not an expert at this, and
me neither.
And we normally don't do our own like top 4 top rank because I don't really like the format, but because we're in the playoff rankings now, we just thought it'd be kind of fun to do.
Well, and it's interesting because it is so unclear who should be there right now. I mean, the top 3 are pretty solid, I think, but as far as that 4th spot, I think it's kind of anybody's game right now, especially if Baylor wins and Minnesota wins. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens there.
But yeah, so it was an interesting weekend of football. It was a fun weekend for us. We got to hang out with each other and all our friends, and now we're. You wanna talk about some games, Daryl?
I do. Yes, I do. Right. We got Indiana going to visit that number 9 Penn State team that just took a harsh loss. What do you see happening here?
They're not ranked. I think Indiana's ranked like 25 in the coaches poll or the AP poll, but that's not the one that matters. Yeah. They're ranked in one of the polls. They're 7-2, so they're bowl eligible. They've been playing good football. One of their only losses is to Ohio State. I'm not sure who their other loss is to. But this is a sneaky good. This is a sneaky good Indiana team.
Michigan State, and they were at Michigan State.
Yeah, Michigan State plays good defense usually. So, sneaky good Indiana team. They're 7-2. They're going into Penn State. They're gonna have to play at Happy Valley. But yeah, this is just an interesting game. I'm going to go with the Hoosiers in this game. I'm going to go with Indiana, and I'll tell you why. Penn State I think they're going to be a little bit demoralized from losing to Minnesota. I think they're going to be a little bit beat up, and I think they're going to be looking past Indiana. They're going to be looking towards Ohio State. So I think Indiana might be able to jump out and grab them this week, so I got the Hoosiers. It's going to be close, though. It's going to be cold. Give me the Hoosiers by a field goal.
I agree with you. I think that to a certain extent, at least, I agree that what I think is really going to come down to is how does Penn State respond, right? I think that the coaching staff over there is pretty quality. I think that they will respond well, and they will realize that they'll get them calmed down and say, hey, look, guys, we're still very much in the picture here, and we have a very favorable schedule moving forward. Ohio State obviously is the big test, but I think it comes down to that. I think if they beat Ohio State, they can almost guarantee a spot in the playoff as long as they continue to win out. So yeah, I like Penn State here. I think that they will respond well, but I agree with you. This is a testament to how does a team respond after a big loss.
Yeah. Let me tell you why Indiana's going to win.
Right.
Because their quarterback wears number 1 and he throws left-handed. Actually, I'm sorry. He wears number 9.
Okay.
I thought he wore number 1. Anyway,
you heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
His name Michael Penix Jr. He wears number 9, not number 1. I'm going
to keep my pick, but I just read that he is out. He is out for the season.
Cool. You got to keep your pick though.
I'm gonna keep my pick. I picked the Hoosiers already. I'm gonna stay with the Hoosiers, but they probably won't win because they just lost their quarterback.
Are you sure you can change your pick? I mean, it's totally fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Give me Penn State.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the kind of commitment you can expect here on the College Football Game Day Breakfast Podcast, folks.
Waffly at best.
Absolutely.
So
speaking of waffles, what did you have for breakfast?
I had bagels and lox. I had a bagel sandwich. Have you ever had bagels and lox before, Daryl?
I have not. That sounds lovely, though.
Very traditional Jewish dish. I had to bring my father-in-law to Houston this morning for a procedure that he had to have done. And while he was getting that done, I went to breakfast at Einstein Bros Bagels. So you take an everything bagel and you toast it, and then they put cream cheese, capers, red onions, smoked salmon, and tomato on it. I don't eat tomato, so I take the tomato off. But then you just eat it like a sandwich, and I got a Dr. Pepper to drink. And it was really, really good. What'd you have for breakfast?
That sounds lovely.
It was.
I had a granola bar.
Granola bar?
and some Propel Gatorade water.
I like it.
So I had the Soccer Mom breakfast. That's
breakfast
right.
Champions.
Well, my man, what you got? Number 23, the midshipman, Navy. He's coming in to visit the Irish. Both teams with 7 wins. Notre Dame has an extra loss, though, 7-2. Yeah. Who you got here?
Classic rivalry going back to the very early days of college football when the military academies dominated college football. You look at Navy's schedule, and their only loss currently is to Memphis, a highly ranked Memphis team, who it will probably
down TCU. I mean, who took down SMU recently?
Yeah. So they are currently, I believe, they don't have a chance to make the conference championship game, because the conference championship game is probably going to be played between Memphis and Cincinnati. But they have a big opportunity here against Notre Dame.
An exclamation point on their season.
Yeah. So I don't know when the last time Notre Dame and Navy played, but you're going to see one team wearing navy blue jerseys with white numbers and then gold helmets and gold pants, and then you're going to see the other team wearing white jerseys with navy blue numbers and gold helmets and gold pants, most likely. So
beautiful game.
Yeah. Navy runs that triple option offense, and I'm going to pick Navy here. I'm going to go with the midshipmen. That offense is hard to stop, and I think they have one of the leaders in rushing and one of the leaders in rushing touchdowns, because one of the military academies always does, because they all run the triple option. So yeah, give me the midshipmen here. Notre Dame's defense is really good, but I don't know if they're good against the run. So, but yeah, I'm going to go with Navy.
Yeah, this is a toss. I think this game could very well go either way. This feels like when you're watching college game day on Saturday morning, this feels like one of the ones that Bear would tell you that Notre Dame's not going to cover or whatever. This feels like one he would be very interested in.
I love Bear so much.
I do too. That man is a
great.
Treasure.
Yeah.
He is, 100%.
Chris Felica is his real name, if you didn't know that.
Oh, really? Wow, that kind of humanizes him a little bit. I like to just think of him as Bear. I'm taking the Fighting Irish here. I think Navy obviously can do a lot on offense. There's no doubt of that. But I do think that this is probably a real test of defense that they have not yet seen, except for maybe against Memphis. But yeah, I like Notre Dame here. I think they're going to be at home. They're scrappy because they got 2 losses and they're trying to, sort of finish out the season strong. So I'm taking Notre Dame here.
All right. I like it.
And feed me a game.
So we're going to talk about Wake Forest, who was ranked, but they lost to Virginia Tech last week, going into number 3 Clemson, playing them over there in Life Valley, South Carolina. Because the real Death Valley is in Baton Rouge, you thieves. Anyway,
actually, the real Death Valley is where the Undertaker and Kane are from. So
look, that's not what we're talking about. Right? Anyway, but yeah, Wake Forest, who was at the beginning of the season, they were undefeated, and they had a bit of a hiccup against Louisville in a game that went to like a bunch of overtimes, I think, and it was really high scoring, and they only lost by like a field goal.
62-59 the score of that game.
Yeah, they're just wild. And then they ended up getting kind of trounced last week by Virginia Tech, because I think they were looking past Virginia Tech, looking ahead to this game. I think this is going to be a very good game, but I'm going to pick Clemson here. 1, Clemson's at home. 2, when you start to count Clemson out, they get pissed off and they start playing. Right. And they've been stomping people. Like they had that one close game against, they've had 2 close games this year. That was against Texas A&M and North Carolina. And other than that, they've been raffle stomping people. And I think this will be a very good game. I think it will be high scoring. I think Wake Forest will hang around. They're going to be competitive, but I think Clemson will pull it out in the fourth quarter.
Right. I hear you. This is a game that would have been much more interesting to me if Wake Forest had not lost to last week. It had been one thing if they lost close, but I mean it was not close. Virginia Tech completely rolled them up. You look at the Louisville litmus test, back-to-back weeks. These teams play Louisville. Wake Forest won off of a last-second field goal. Wake Forest lost off of a last-second field goal, and it was a 62-59 affair, whereas with when Clemson played Louisville the following week, they won 45-10. I don't think there's anything complicated here. Even if Wake Forest had won last week, I think they have a long shot to beat Clemson. This one's not complicated to me. I'm taking Clemson all day, and I'm taking them by like 30 because the last three games they've put up over 50 points and won by about a 30-point plus margin. Yeah,
Clemson is one of those teams that'll be really good. They'll be really highly ranked, but they lose a game to a conference opponent that should not beat them every year. And they had that game and finally got over that hump against North Carolina. So
exactly, yeah. They always do one.
There's always one with Clemson. And they had their one, and North Carolina couldn't get it done. So I'm going to go. I do think this is going to be closer than 30, than what you're saying it will be. But I'm still going to take Clemson by probably 10, right around 10 or 14, something like that.
We'll write that down since we picked the same team. I'm saying 30 plus. You're saying more in the neighborhood of 10.
Yeah, I think it'll be closer than you think it will, and maybe some. I think it'll be closer than some of the experts think it will.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I hope you're right. I think it'd be interesting to see a closer game. It might humanize Clemson a little bit, and potentially change opinions going into the playoff a little bit. But we'll see. Bulldogs going to visit the Auburn football Tigers, who should really be the Eagles.
The War Eagles, yeah. I agree. They should change their mascot to the War Eagles.
Just there's too many damn Tigers. Be the Eagles.
Yeah. No, be the War Eagles, because there's a bunch of other Eagles already. Be the War Eagles.
Yeah, be the War Eagles. This is college football. You can have as much fun with your mascot as you want.
Mm-hmm.
This will be a good game, Spencer.
This will be a very good game. Georgia, obviously, they just got moved up to top 4 in the rankings earlier tonight. We are recording this on Tuesday, and it's going to come out on Friday morning. But luckily, we were able to see the rankings before they came out. And we've been talking about Auburn's defense here at the beginning of this. This game is the Deep South's oldest rivalry. That's the formal name of this game. Auburn and Georgia play every year. They always knock the snot out of each other. Auburn is at home, and Auburn has a really good defense. So I think this game is going to go the way Auburn's offense goes. If Auburn's offense shows up, I think Auburn wins this game easily. If Auburn's offense doesn't show up, I think it'll be close, but I still think Auburn gets it. They're at home, and I think they probably have the first or second best defense in the SEC. So give me Auburn.
You know what? It's not often that I say this. You're probably not going to hear this for a good long time. But I agree with everything you just said. Mm-hmm. I'm taking Auburn here. I think that, again, it comes down to Bo Nix. Their defense is going to keep them in this game. Jake Fromm is obviously very impressive. But this is the best defense he's played all year.
He's got to get past that D-line of Auburn, and I don't think he's going to be able to.
I don't think so either. I think this is going to be a 20-17, 20-6.
Mm-hmm.
Field goals, maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns for each team. Vegas is very split. Vegas thinks that it's a 2.5-point favorite for Georgia, but a 2.5-point favorite means they had to pick something, but they don't really know.
Yeah. Anytime you see, as Scott Van Pelt would say, 2 and a hook, which is anything with a half, that means Vegas didn't know what to call it. Sometimes they use the half to win themselves more money. But a lot of times, if they didn't know what to pick, they'll stick that half on there and put it out there. So this will be a fun game. You don't want to miss this one. It's going to be a scrappy SEC defensive game. A slobber knocker, as JR would say.
It's going to be a slobber knocker. The kid gloves are going to come off, and business is going to pick up. So don't want to miss this one. Mm-hmm. You're very high on Minnesota right now, and they have their biggest test of the season. No, I take that back. The second biggest test of the season so far, going to visit Iowa.
Yes. All right. So, one, they're playing in Kinnick Stadium, which is a very tough place to play, especially if you're a highly ranked Big Ten team and Iowa is struggling. They're coming off of this win against Penn State. They had a great game against Penn State. This is, let's see. I'm trying to see what time this game kicks off.
It is a 3 o'clock game. 3 o'clock on Fox.
Game. Afternoon game.
3 in the morning.
That'd be. I want that to happen just once, because that'd be wonderful to watch.
Are you kidding me? Awesome.
That'd be wonderful to watch. Anyway, so Minnesota's going into Kinnick Stadium against an Iowa team that started off very good, but has been struggling. I'm going to pick Minnesota here because Minnesota's defense is really good and Iowa's offense can't score points. You look at some of the games they've played, and they just can't. They can't really. They don't score. They get about 25 points against the good team, and then 25 or less, and you just have to budget them appropriately. Like they lost to Michigan 10-3. They lost to Penn State 17-12. They beat Purdue 26-20. They beat Northwestern 20-0, and then they just scored 22 and lost to Wisconsin. So I think Minnesota's offense is going to come in and roll against their defense, and I think Minnesota's defense is going to stifle them on offense. So I got Minnesota, and I don't think it's going to be that close, even though they're going to be in Kinnick Stadium.
I hear that. I think that the big thing here is going to be how does Minnesota respond, because teams have to respond to big games, win or lose, right? Mm-hmm. Because LSU obviously came off a big win, and I have an opinion about that, and we're going to talk about it in a bit here in our new segment. So stick around for that. But Minnesota here it has to respond well to this upset, because as much as it gives your team sort of this extra boost of like, yes, we can beat a big time team, and it gives you a lot of confidence. It also is a lot of adrenaline, and it's also a lot of just emotion. And so you have to come back next week and just go back to the process and not sort of get in your feelings and everything else. So that's going to be the real test for Minnesota. I think that if the same Minnesota team that came and played last week comes into Iowa, they're going to get off to a slow start because Iowa's defense is for real. But I think they're going to outpace Iowa. I have Minnesota winning this game, but do not be surprised if something goes terribly wrong and Iowa manages to pull it out. But yeah. I am going to take Minnesota, but watch out because it could be if you're a Minnesota fan.
There's that little tingle that you get in the pit of your stomach that told me to pick Iowa in this game, but I'm going to ignore it. Because
me too. I'm trying to be optimistic.
This is the game when the underdog, undefeated team loses, right? Every year there's one, and then they get the big upset. And they get the big upset, and then they go against the team that they should beat, and they end up losing, right? So, right. But Minnesota has made me a fan, so maybe this pick was a little biased, but I still think Minnesota's going to win. But let's row the boat. Give me Minnesota.
I'll take them too. Let's just hope the fairy tale doesn't come to an end, but it would not shock me because nothing shocks me in college football anymore.
Nope, so. Nothing. So,
do we want to move on to our marquee game, or do we want to move on to the bottom of the barrel or the time machine?
We can go just the big game. Or whichever.
Right, man.
Tell me about one. Tell me to pick one.
Give me the time machine game.
Time machine game. Yeah, North Carolina at Pittsburgh. I believe this was being played on Thursday night or Friday. No, it's got to be Thursday night. Because if it was Friday night, they'd be able to watch it. Yeah, we're obviously both big on North Carolina. We're big Mac Brown fans. They're 4-5. They've had an up and down season. They almost beat Clemson. They should have beat Clemson. They should have kicked that extra point. Daryl.
Oh, no.
But they're gonna go in against Pitt, and Pitt's a decent team. Pitt's playing at home. I'm gonna pick Pittsburgh in this one. But honestly, this one's just a coin flip. Neither team has that great of a record, and they're not. I don't think either one of these is gonna play for a conference championship this year. But Thursday night game, 7 p.m. on ESPN. Give me Pittsburgh at home.
This is going to be a close one. I think this is very well could go either way.
Yeah.
North Carolina, they're moving the ball. Even in their losses, they're moving the ball. Their 6 overtime loss to Virginia Tech, again, moving the ball. Clemson, lost by 1, moving the ball. I think that North Carolina's defense is trying to improve, but has not been putting up a ton in their past couple games. So, yeah, give me North Carolina here. I think they're going to do just enough to win, but it should be a fun one. But, again, this is the time machine game, so you already know what happens if you're listening to this, or you can at least check to find out because we're recording this before the game happens, but it releases after the game happens. So you're coming back in time with us to make this pick. I'm taking North Carolina, and Spencer, you got Pitt.
Mm-hmm. Talking about that game they had, that 6 overtime game. Do you know what I want to see happen, Daryl? Because I think the new overtime rules are complete garbage. Do you know what I want to happen?
What's that?
Are you aware of the new overtime rules, by the way?
Just after 3, you only get to do 2 versions, right?
No, it's after 3, you have to go for 2. After 5 overtimes, you just trade 2-point conversion chances. Here's what I want to happen. I think these rules are garbage, and I think they made a rule for an anomaly. They made this rule because of the Texas A&M and LSU game last year. It went to 7 overtimes. It was the game of the year. Anyway, they made this rule because of an anomaly, because how many times a year do you have a game go to 7 overtimes. And I bet that average is like less than half. Anyway, so I want to see two teams protest this rule. I want to see them get to that 5th overtime, and then when they get out there to go for those 2-point conversion, they take knees until they get to like 20 overtimes, and then they start playing ball.
Wow. I would love to see that. It's funny you say that because that technically can happen, I think, right? Like that.
They could go to 20.
Technically, that is within the realm of possibility based on these rules.
It's probably the likelihood is very low, but
likelihood
it could happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, it couldn't because the team wants to win, right? Like, if there wasn't conflicting interest here, I think that could happen.
The team's taking knees. That's never going to happen, obviously.
Right.
But it could go to 20 overtimes with this whole 2-point conversion. But that's just a funny thing. I think this rule is complete garbage, complete baloney.
Brother, dude, are you kidding me? It speeds up the game. People got bedtimes. I got work tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like,
live a little, stay up, watch some ball.
First of all, if we're going into the 5th overtime, I've already lived, okay? At that time, it's time to wrap it up and go home. At least this will encourage the referees to keep making correct calls and not be like, oh, I want this to end and make a bad call.
I don't think any referee has ever intentionally made a call that just ended a game. That's probably arguable,
I'll tell you what.
Debatable.
I'll tell you what. You go umpire a season of Little League Baseball real quick, and then tell me that you don't start seeing more strikes suddenly, okay? I promise you.
Anyway,
that's how it works.
We could talk about this for days, but I just think the new rule is garbage, and I wanted to talk about that.
I hear you, man. Bottom of the barrel game, Northern Colorado, a 2-8 team against going into North Dakota, a 5-4 team.
Mm-hmm. I had to dig deep into the depths of the FCS to find this one because I couldn't find one in the FBS, and this was the worst record I saw. So I was like, "Yep, going with that one." Northern Colorado, they had the worst record out of any team I clicked on. I think I saw an O and whatever team, but the team they were playing had a good record. So
there's no fun in that. We know how that's going to end.
So the Northern Colorado Bears going to play the North Dakota. I want to say it's Hawks, Fighting Hawks. The North Dakota Fighting Hawks. Both
look like they have the University of North Texas logo.
A little bit. It looks very similar to the United States Postal Service logo.
Oh, it does. That's nice.
But I'm going to pick Northern Colorado in this game because I will never pick against a team that wears navy blue and yellow and is named the Bears.
I understand that. I'm going with the North Dakota Fighting Hawks because it's the opposite pick you did, and they have green, and I like the color green. So
yeah. And to be all honest with you, North Dakota will probably win this game, but I think the Northern Colorado Bears are gonna go into North Dakota and they're gonna be equally as cold as they were in Colorado because they're not that far away from home, and I think they'll try to get a win.
Well, I mean, and I'm trying to buff my pick'em record, so I'm not pulling any punches here. Mm-hmm. And then finally, the big game this week: number 10 Oklahoma going into Waco to visit other Bears. Baylor Bears.
The number 13 Baylor Bears. Much to the excitement of your father-in-law, who we seem to be mentioning every week.
Yeah, right. He's getting all kinds of shout-outs for no reason.
It was good to see him on Saturday, though. I hadn't seen him.
And he was very pumped about the Bears because when he got to the wedding, they had just won, in a third overtime against TCU. That being said, I'm going to be honest with you. I think the fairy tale ends here for Baylor.
I do too.
Yeah, as much as I want Baylor to pull this out, I think it's going to take. So, and here's my thoughts. Right, Oklahoma, I had nowhere near my top 8, even though they only have one loss. It's an ugly loss, but they do have one loss. My problem is that Oklahoma, their defense couldn't stop our high school team right now. Their defense is not where it needs to be. It started out hot, and again, they had the kind of mirror Texas in that they started out the season defensively very strong, But it has not lasted, and I don't know if it's injuries. I don't keep up with Oklahoma as closely as an Oklahoma fan would. Since they won last week, obviously against Iowa State, but it was 42-41. Their K-State loss was again they let K-State put up back-to-back weeks. They've let the other team put up 41 points on them, and that's not what a playoff team does.
No.
So we'll see, because Baylor has been able to move the ball very well this year. You could be looking at another 41-47, 41-43 game.
Yeah. And see, I like Baylor. Obviously, I'm a fan. I want the fairy tale to continue. I want them to stay undefeated. I would like for them to have a shot at going to the Big 12 championship. But I think the fairy tale ends this week because, yes, Oklahoma has played 2 close games against 2 teams they probably should have beat. But you look at 3 of Baylor's last 4 games. Overtime win over Texas Tech 33-30. 3-point win over West Virginia, and then an overtime win over TCU. So I think their defense kind of struggles, and I think their offense struggles sometimes as well. So I'm gonna pick Oklahoma in this game. Please excuse my dogs barking, but I'm going to pick Oklahoma in this game to win and interrupt Baylor's season.
I gotta say this, man. I think that this may not be as simple, because I originally said, my gut told me as soon as we looked at this, that Oklahoma is going to win. However, now that I'm kind of looking at it, I'm beginning to think that Baylor may have a real chance here, and here's a couple reasons why. And obviously I think you agree they have a chance, but I'm picking Baylor. I've decided, and here's why. Number one is that the K-State team that, again, they played at K-State. This is very similar. We're using K-State as the test here. They kept K-State at home to 12. Mm-hmm. Baylor's defense was good enough to do that. In the past couple games, they have not allowed. In the past 3 games, they've not allowed over 23. The only real game that they struggled with defensively was Tech. But they points allowed per game, they're at 19. Oklahoma points allowed per game is 25. But again, you look at the K-State game sort of as a comparison. Baylor is allowing a lot less points. I think that this could be a game Baylor could potentially pull out, man. And I think I am gonna go with them. I had one more point, but I lost it. I think especially if this game goes into overtime, Baylor wins, because they're used to the overtime grind now.
I want Baylor to win this game, but I'm going to pick Oklahoma to win this game, just because I think Oklahoma is just too much. But I do think Baylor has a chance, but I'm going to pick Oklahoma to win.
And I'll say this too, is that even if Baylor does win this game, even if they do lose this game, it's unlikely that they would. If they do lose this game, I think it's very, very likely that they would play Oklahoma again in the playoff. Not in the playoff, in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, which I hate that. So the Big 12 needs to add 2 more teams. One, because they're the Big 12 and they only have 10. They need to add 2 more teams. And then they need to have divisions again. They need to have a Big 12 North and a Big 12 South, like they did back in the day. I kind of like it. I dislike. I've talked about this before. I think you should have divisions, and the winners of the divisions should play for the conference championship. And I know a lot of people are like, it should be the best 2 teams in the conference. Yeah, but what if the team in the North Division lost to a conference rival, and that conference rival had a big upset? You're going to, and that was that. And, let's say there's 2 teams, and, that the conference rival had the big upset, and that was the tiebreaker, and they get into the conference championship. If you just let the 2 best teams in, the team that they beat gets to play in the conference championship over them, which kind of feels bad, and it kind of diminishes the fact that they upset a highly ranked team. So let's go to divisions and get a proper championship game back.
No, man, I kind of like it as it is. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West.
That's what the Big 12 kind of is anyway.
Yeah.
But I do think
all the shootouts.
Yeah. If you could add 2 teams to the Big 12 right now, who would they be? Off the top of your head, go.
H and H. I don't know. U of H for sure, though.
Yeah. Here's what I would do, right?
No. You know what? Memphis and U of H. That's who I'd
Memphis
add.
and U of H. Okay, I agree with you, but I'm going to make another move. And I'm not gonna talk about the other moves that I would have to make for this to happen. I'm going to move West Virginia to the ACC, and I'm going to put U of H, Memphis, and Cincinnati in the Big 12.
Okay. All right. I see you. I like it. About it. I like it.
Yeah, I like it too.
So to clarify, I'm taking Baylor here. Spencer, you're taking Oklahoma. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I got a gut feeling this is a game that Baylor can win, especially at home. Oklahoma has obviously struggled on the road this year in their one loss to K-State. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, game day is in Waco. If we didn't mention that, good on the Bears for getting game day to come to their place.
Yeah, beautiful stadium too. Driven by it many times.
Yeah, so we have a new segment this week.
Daryl,
I want you to tell me about a game that on paper looks like it's going to go one way, but you think will go the opposite way. Go.
I'm going to take LSU at Ole Miss. Obviously, LSU should, coming off of their huge win in Tuscaloosa, should show up and wipe the floor with Ole Miss. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that this is going to be a very different game than it looks, which was the prompt. I don't think that LSU is going to lose. I don't think that Ole Miss is going to win. But do not be surprised if you're looking up at halftime and it's like 17-13 Ole Miss, and you're like, what the heck is happening? Yeah. Just because, again, teams have to be able to respond to big wins and big losses well. And just get back to the process, and that's going to be tough to do. LSU team that is coming off of a very big high.
And I can see that LSU and Ole Miss are obviously rivals. It's not a very hotly contested rivalry game.
Right. But going into Oxford, funny things happen, and this is a night game, and and LSU now has a huge target on their back, being team to beat.
Yeah, everybody wants to take down number one.
Absolutely.
Night game,
and keep in mind,
they're going to set up those fancy tailgates at the Grove. It'll be fun.
For what it's worth, Ole Miss has put up 30 points plus on Oklahoma. Has put up over 30 points on Alabama until the LSU game. No one else had done that. They were within 6 points of Auburn. They were within 7 points of A&M. They were within not quite 10 points of Mizzou. But they have been in every game they've been in. LSU is emotionally vulnerable right now just because of what happened. So yeah, keep your eye on that game. I think LSU still wins, but I think you don't be surprised if you look up at halftime and it's tied. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, I could see that happening. I like some of the things I saw Ole Miss doing on offense. I think John Rice Plumlee, their quarterback, he's a dual threat. He can run a lot and he can pass. And they've got this little system where they'll have two running backs in the backfield, and it's like almost like a triple option type of deal. So I like the way things Ole Miss have been doing on offense. But obviously LSU should win this game. I think they will win this game. But I can see some of the points you've made.
So LSU just needs to basically get back to the process and not worry about it. But easier said than done. What is your game that should go one way, but you think will go the opposite?
Number 11, Florida at Mizzou.
Tell me about this, because I saw an article earlier that mirrored what you said.
You look at the history of this game since Mizzou has joined the SEC. There have been 2 or 3 times where Florida has come up against. They've been highly ranked with a chance to make the make the SEC championship game. And they play against Mizzou, and Mizzou shouldn't beat them, but they do. And Florida's often highly ranked when this happens. So I think Florida will win this game, but do not be like you said. Do not be surprised if you look up and Mizzou has got like maybe a 2-touchdown lead, and you look up, they got like a 2-touchdown lead, and they end up winning this game because, they're playing in Missouri, and 2, Mizzou has a habit of that, and Mizzou has won the last 2 times these 2 teams have played.
I think if they get up to a hot enough start, they could keep a lead.
Yeah. It depends on which Mizzou team shows up. If it's the Mizzou team that was good earlier in the season, they'll be fine. But if not, then Florida will get this one. I'm sorry if you can't hear me. My dog was making some noise under my table, and I was shooing him away.
Strongly disagree. I award you 0 points for that opinion. I'm done with Mizzou. They've scarred me. I had high hopes.
Yeah, I made the prediction at the beginning of this season that Mizzou was going to be undefeated going into their game against Georgia. I was obviously wrong about that, but they looked good. Well, that prediction went out the window when they lost 37-31 to Wyoming in the first game of the season. But
what they look like, you know what they look like is they look like the 2014. Oh, yeah, no, they look like the 2014 A&M team with Kenny Hill that started out like a lightning in a bottle and then took a one loss to Mississippi State and then went on to like lose 56-zip at Bama. So
was that the year when they beat the dog snot out of South Carolina in Columbia?
Yes, and everyone thought South Carolina was a big deal, but in fact they just were trash.
Yeah, that was when Kenny Hill broke all of Johnny Manziel's records and then just
that's how it goes. Yeah. But so I don't know. I mean, maybe you're right, but I just don't see it. But hey, maybe you're right.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen. We are talking about college football.
Tell me what is the prettiest thing I'm going to see a player wearing this weekend?
I actually have two for you, and is Oklahoma's military appreciation uniforms. It's like a black helmet with like a gray jersey, and it's got like an American flag on it, and some black pants with some gray trim. They look really, really good. And they've got like black and gray and white camouflage like accessories they're going to be wearing with this, and I think they look really good. They did a cool photo shoot. They were standing with some members of the military in front of a fighter jet type of some military aircraft. I don't know the name of it. But it was really cool looking. And I like it a lot.
I gotta say it's very clean. It's very reminiscent of like an army uniform. But they have for obvious reasons. But they have the American flag on the left shoulder. They have the nice, again, what makes some of these alternate uniforms so nice is because they usually will go to a black or a white or a gray. But the accents is where it really shows. So they have these little orange accents that mirror the cowboy orange, and it just looks so nice with the uniform. It's very clean.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna tell you about Utah is doing some throwback uniforms to their 1966-1967 season. They're wearing these like silver hand painted helmets with the UU logo, the Utah Utes throwback logo. They're just wearing basic red jerseys with white numbers, and it says Utes, and they have some gloves that are just red that say Utes across them. And then they're wearing gray pants that look very similar to these uniforms. Remind me of the uniforms that Arkansas wore when they did those uniforms inspired by the Dallas Cowboys uniforms. The pants are gray, and they have two red stripes outlining a white stripe going down. And I think they look really, really good.
Yeah, no,
clean,
I mean,
classic.
The helmet had me shook. These are very nice. So definitely go check out. Spencer should put the link to those in the description of the videos that you can go check them out for yourself. They're very clean.
They are very clean. I like them a lot.
One of those people that puts like football uniforms as your wallpaper on your phone. This is a good one to do this week for sure.
I am definitely one of those people.
I know you are. I know you are.
I haven't done it in a long time, but I am definitely one of those people.
Yep. Well, to wrap up the show, would you like to tell me something cool outside of the world of college football?
Yes, and I've been wanting to tell you about this for like 2 weeks, but I just haven't had the opportunity. It didn't seem timely. And every day I'm almost clicking the link to send it to you. I'm like, no, I'm going to wait till I'm on the show. So... as you know, we've talked about it a bit. Me and Daryl are both also baseball fans, and we're Astros fans, so we were watching the World Series. It didn't go the way we wanted it to, but...
That's not the cool thing.
That's not the cool thing. The cool thing is I was watching highlights And I was watching Dude Perfect, if you're familiar with them. They made videos about blitzball. You remember those, Daryl? Those like those baseballs that you can throw all kind of crazy curveballs with and stuff.
Yes, I do. Yes.
So I was watching those, and if you watch like blitzball videos, it'll pop up with wiffle ball videos. And I discovered a channel called MLW, which I'm assuming stands for Major League Wiffle or Major League Wiffle Ball. But this is like a whole league, and this is a group of kids that started back in like 2009, 2010 when they were like 9 or 10 years old. And they just started playing wiffle ball in their front yard and filming it, putting it up to YouTube. And they have like different teams, and they have like team T-shirts, and they have like divisions, and they go to like the ALCS and the ALDS and the World Series, and they're still going. And now they're all like teenagers and young adults, and like this is like a full on production, and they host wiffle ball tournaments. They host wiffle ball tournaments all over the country. They're from Michigan, so they host wiffle ball tournaments all over in the north and in the northeast. But it's really like quality, just like wholesome content, because it's just a bunch of like teenagers and young adults and kids playing wiffle ball, doing a thing they enjoy. But they've broke it down. They've got like 2 divisions. They've got 8 teams. And people are like big fans of this thing. So shout out to the Schultz brothers and the Tommy Koff. It's Kyle, Daniel, and there's another brother, but he's not there as much. I forget his name. But Kyle and Daniel Schultz and Tommy Coughlin, who've been doing this thing since they were kids. And I'm going to shout out my team that I cheer for in this league. Go Pacific Predators. I'm about that black and yellow life. We're coming off a World Series victory, and we're going to go for back-to-back next season.
It's amazing to me how fast you use the word "we." Like whenever the XFL announced their teams, you were immediately like, I got my team. We're going to the championship this year.
I mean, yeah, you got to be all in.
You got to do. Yes, that's true. That's true. I got to give you props there.
Who's your XFL team?
Honestly, they haven't drafted yet, right? Have they?
They have. They have a roster. Yep.
Okay, well, I'm out of the loop then, because that's what I wanted to check. I wasn't going to pick a team based off of the location because, let's see where that's gotten me, Dallas Cowboys. So all I'm going to do is just look up the rosters and see sort of some of the players I know. And I don't know, I don't want to get committed to a team because the AAF went out of business. Although the team I picked, the Arizona Hotshots, they were like technically the champions. They had the best record, and so I like awarded it to them before they shut down.
And my team, the San Antonio Commanders, had like the second best record. So
so it was fine. But yeah, so I don't know. It's funny. People are like, we immediately. I don't know.
Yeah,
the psychology major in me is freaking out.
I say stuff. We, like, obviously I don't know these kids. I haven't played against them.
Sure.
But I cheer for the Pacific Predators in this league. And I want them to win again. Also, if you're a fan of baseball and you like pitching and you like crazy, filthy pitches, go watch some wiffle ball videos, because the way you can throw a wiffle ball is insane. The guy Daniel Schultz on his team, he throws right-handed, but if you bat lefty and you go up against him, you stand no chance. And obviously in baseball, righty on lefty gives an advantage to the batter, not in wiffle ball, because he throws this big outside hooking curve ball that looks like it's going to go past their little strike zone, and then it just sinks right into the zone every time. It's ridiculous, but go watch it.
Remind me, if you remember, remind me next week, because my cool thing outside of college football will deal with baseball, but I had something else I want to do this week.
All right, cool.
So this week, my cool news outside of the world of college football is in the pop culture area. Spencer, you're aware there's a Sonic the Hedgehog movie being created?
I am aware, and I was a Sonic fan when I was a kid, and he looked real bad when the trailer first came out, and then they listened to the fans and redesigned him. I haven't watched the trailer yet, but I'm going to as soon as we get off here.
That's the news. And what's cool about it is that, long story short, for those that are out of the loop, Sonic the Hedgehog, there's going to be a movie. First trailer, they made it look like some Alvin and the Chipmunks Cats level of weird CGI. He had like his teeth were too realistic, his eyes were like small and too far apart. I don't know. You just see it and it's like nightmare fuel. But they list obviously there was a huge outcry, and then Paramount, which is the studio that's producing it, was like, "All right, we got you," and they stopped everything and they redid the design. Which, by the way, if you know anything about filmmaking or CGI, art, what's the word I'm looking for? Creating. I'm looking for like a word that I can't think of right now. But doing CGI is a ton of work. It's a next level animation, and for them to sort of turn things over and change things entirely over the course of just a couple months, and then drop a trailer today that basically fixed it. And not only is it fixed, but it looks like pretty fine. Like it looks pretty good, and I'm sure they're gonna sharpen it up before the movie comes out. But very, very impressive, and it's something that I think people at Disney should listen to, because Disney sort of has a reputation right now of just being, we're going to put out whatever we want and you're going to deal with it, even if the fans are like, this is wrong, I hate this. Yeah. So this is a good example of how you can actually listen to your fans, Disney. But yeah, really excited about the Sonic movie. I don't think it's going to be a movie, but it was just cool for them to like recreate some of the exact same shots in the new trailer. They show like, hey, we've listened to what you said, and to be clear, the movie doesn't look like it's going to be the best thing ever, but it's going to be fun. Like it's got Jim Carrey playing Dr. Eggman, and some of the script seems just very fun. So I don't think it's going to be a masterpiece, but I think it's going to be something you want to watch because this is going to be fun.
Yeah, if you're a fan of Sonic, go watch this movie.
If you're not, go with someone that is a fan of Sonic and watch them react to it, and that will also be fun.
Yeah. Speaking of things inside the Sonic the Hedgehog universe, Shadow the Hedgehog video game that came out back in the day is a great video game, and ain't nobody going to pop me about it.
Thank you for joining us today on the Gameday Breakfast Podcast.
Yeah, that's about all I got, Daryl. You got anything else?
No, man, I think that about does it.
All right. Thank you for listening. Go follow the Facebook page. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Leave us some feedback, all that YouTube stuff. And
before you know what to do.
We'll see y'all next week.
All right, have a good one, y'all.
Yes, sir.